In this technical review, we will install NAKIVO backup and replication on a Linux server and review what engineers should check before, during, and after the installation. Linux installation is useful when the backup server needs to run on a stable, lightweight operating system, when the organization standardizes on Linux for infrastructure services, or when the backup deployment should avoid dependency on a Windows server. In NAKIVO, the Linux installer can deploy the full solution, which includes the director, the onboard transporter, and a default backup repository. The director provides the web interface and controls configuration, jobs, inventory, activities, and scheduling. The transporter performs the data movement, compression, deduplication-related processing, encryption, and repository interaction. The backup repository is the storage location where backup data and metadata are kept. For this demonstration, we will install the full solution on a Linux machine. This is the most common starting point for a small or lab deployment because it provides a working NAKIVO instance on a single server. Before we start the installation, let's review the prerequisites. On the NAKIVO website, navigate to Resources and then User Guide. In Deployment System Requirements, Deployment Requirements, you can view the hardware requirements and the supported operating systems for installing the software. The Linux server should be a supported distribution and version. NAKIVO supports a broad set of Linux platforms, including Ubuntu Server, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, SUSE Linux Enterprise, Debian, Alma Linux, Oracle, Rocky, and CentOS. For a full director and transporter installation, the minimum hardware baseline is 2 CPU cores, 4 GB of RAM, and at least 10 GB of free space. Now we move to the Linux server. First, log in over SSH with an account that can use sudo. Before uploading or running the installer, confirm that the required packages are installed. These packages matter because NAKIVO may need them for repository access, file system handling, mounted storage, or related data protection workflows. For a list of all necessary packages for your deployment, please refer to the link provided in the video description, which directs you to the relevant section of the NAKIVO user guide. Next, check the firewall. The director web interface uses HTTPS, with 4443 as the default port. The onboard transporter uses 9446 by default. The onboard transporter also needs a data transfer port range, which defaults to 9448 through 10,000. During installation, we can change these values, but whatever values we choose must be allowed through the host firewall and any network firewall between the backup server and the systems it needs to communicate with. Now, let's download the installer. From the NAKIVO website, visit the Download section by clicking the Start Free Trial button. Copy the download link for the Linux installer and then open your local machine's terminal. Type the command sudo wget and then right-click your mouse on the terminal to paste the link you copied earlier from your clipboard. After the file finishes downloading, run sudo chmod +x against the installer file. Now we start the installer with root privileges. In the terminal, run sudo // and the installer file name. The installer opens in console mode. First, it displays the license agreement. Use space to move through the agreement pages. On some consoles, you may need to press Q to exit the license text view. If you accept the license agreement, type 1 and press Enter. The installer now asks what type of installation we want to perform. For this review, choose the full solution option by typing 1 and pressing Enter. This installs the director and transporter on the Linux machine and creates a default repository unless we choose otherwise during installation. Other installation options include the multi-tenant console, which is primarily used by MSP, but can also be beneficial for administrators managing multiple sites, and the transporter-only option, which installs only the transporter component on the current machine, if you're aiming to protect this machine as a physical, managed by a director that is already deployed in your environment. Or simply create a repository to store your backups to directly attach storage or locally mounted shares onto this machine. Next, the installer asks for the installation path. The default path is /opt/NAKIVO. For most deployments, this is acceptable. If your Linux file system layout separates application binaries from data volumes, you can enter a custom path. The installer asks whether we want to provide a CA certificate for the transporter. In a lab, we can continue without providing one, and NAKIVO will use a self-signed certificate. In production, it is worth discussing certificate management before deployment, especially in environments with strict security requirements. If the organization requires CA-signed certificates, prepare the certificate file in advance and provide the path when prompted. Or use the silent installation option with the certificate argument. Now the installer asks for the director HTTPS port. Press Enter to accept the default 4443, or enter a custom port. For this demo, we keep 4443. The next prompt asks whether to allow automatic support bundle upload during the evaluation period. Think of the support bundle as a collection of log files packaged into an archive. If enabled, the product can create, encrypt, and upload support bundles to NAKIVO support. In a lab or proof of concept, this may help support diagnosing issues faster. In a production or regulated environment, the customer may need to review internal policies before enabling automatic support data upload. Next, specify the transporter port. The default is 9446. This port is used to connect to the transporter installed with the director. Again, we keep the default in this demo. If the port is already used by another service, choose another port and document it. The installer then asks for the transporter data transfer port range. The default range is 9448 through 10,000. This range is used for backup and recovery data movement by the onboard transporter. The range should contain at least 100 ports. Now the installer asks for the default backup repository path. The default path is /opt/nakivo/repository. After we confirm the repository path, the installer begins installing the components. When the process completes, open a browser from an administrator workstation and go to the Linux server IP address or DNS name using HTTPS and the director port. On first access, create the local administrator account using a strong password. After login, the first checks are simple. Confirm that the dashboard loads. Go to Settings, then Nodes, and verify that the onboard transporter is present and connected. Then go to Settings, then Backup Repositories, and confirm that the default repository is available. Now, let's briefly demonstrate silent installation, because this is useful for engineers who need to deploy NAKIVO repeatedly or automate installations. Instead of stepping through the interactive wizard, we can run the installer with command line arguments. For a full solution installation, the basic silent command is the installer file name, followed by -f and -eula-accept. This installs the director and transporter. Additional arguments can be found in the user guide. This is useful for scripted deployments. For MSP or service provider deployments, there is also a multi-tenant installation mode. In an interactive installation, this is selected by choosing the multi-tenant option. In silent installation, the corresponding argument can be used. If you found this video helpful, click the like button and subscribe to our channel to catch new uploads. You can also visit the NAKIVO website to download a free trial version of NAKIVO Backup and Replication and try the solution in your own environment for 15 days.